the one parent of the three of us, I get to talk about my mother as a parent. She was wonderful. She was loving, attentive, encouraging, generous, and unlike many parents, particularly in the early mid-60s, she really trusted me. Usually she was good to do that. She taught me to read Russian. We all feel such a strong connection to our Russian heritage, and although I don't really speak it, the music of Russian is in my head. And she taught me to read it by using these little tiles, little letters that were cut out and used to play on the table with them. And I think that's why to this day I can read most of the Russian letters, and also I have this great affinity for Scrabble. She taught me to cook. I thought she was a great cook. I really did. And I thought she liked cooking. And then I started cooking and I realized she hated cooking. And she was totally not adventurous, but it was her duty, she felt, to put a well-rounded meal on the table for us every day, and she did. You know, we went out for birthdays, but really, she cooked every single day. And I loved some of the stuff that now sounds so horrible, but this incredibly wonderful clam dip with cream cheese, right? And those rolled little olives and the white bread and all those 50s foods that I just adored, partly because it was she who made them, and partly because it was the parties that my parents had with all these exotic, adults coming, and I just loved being part of it. And as the only girl, of course, I got to help. And so I passed that along to my daughters, and now they're both very good cooks. From my mother, I also got an incredible sense of organization, How do you file? How do you write things down so you remember them? David hates my little pieces of papers everywhere, but I know where everything is, really. And when Laura, my younger daughter, was little, my mom offered to help alphabetize all of her books. Now, you haven't seen Laura's room, but it is like wall-to-wall books. And they alphabetize them, and they're still alphabetized. And she takes great pride in telling everyone, my grandmother's a librarian. She's like, you should have books. And as I said, my mom always trusted me. I wanted, as a child, to live up to her trust and deserve her trust. And I thought that was a wonderful way to grow up. She never said, I told you so. She never imposed rules. I talked her out of a curfew when I was 15. But those traits of really listening and really trying to understand a child really served me well as a parent, and I hope my kids bring that to the next generation as well. She was frugal, she was practical, she was committed to her sense of social responsibility. I have to tell you about the frugality, though. My kids used to count the number of Pathmark products in our house, because why should you pay more for a brand name? Education and reading were so much more important to her than things. She went to high school in Roxbury, outside in Boston, and at the time, she and her mother and stepfather had very little money, and so she was put into a non-academic course. It's basically a secretarial course. Most of the girls in that high school were in the secretarial course. And about 6 months before graduation, they had a tea, and my grandmother went to the school, and she told the teachers that my mom wanted to go to college. And she had straight A's. She was the best student in her class, but they had never realized that she wanted to go to college. And my grandmother said, but we don't have the money for this. So the teachers spoke to the guidance counselor. My mother didn't know guidance counselors existed. The guidance counselor went to a group of people at Temple Ohabe Shalom, which was then in Roxbury, now in Brookline, where I worked about 20 years ago as a third grade Sunday school teacher. And this group of people came through, and a couple came to their house. Mom said they were urbane and witty and lovely, and my mother charmed them. And they told her that she should apply to Simmons and Radcliffe, not BU. And Radcliffe didn't want her because she wasn't in the academic course. Simmons said, take the SATs, we'll see. She says in her memoir, I have no idea what my scores were in the exams I took to satisfy Simmons' requirements, but one Saturday morning in the middle of the summer, mail came while I was still in bed. My mother handed me a letter from Simmons. I was accepted. We jumped with joy. It was the most joyous, the most wonderful, the happiest day of my life. She went to Simmons, she found her purpose, she found her people, she found my father.
I found her.
At a square dance, playing the fiddle. grandmother sent me an email saying, you know, she just made you feel a part of the family. When my friends would come over, she wanted to know everything about them. She just wanted to, you know, she just accepted that these are my children's friends, they're my friends too. In the summers when we were growing up, we had the Nob Hill pool, about 6 houses up the street, and we would walk up every day, and every weekend there was a party, people coming over to our house. My dad would grill, my mom would cook, you know, the things she hated to cook, but they were good. And everybody would have dinner, and it was just the most welcoming, open, wonderful household. So she was 91. She would probably correct me and say 91 and 10 and a half months. And we weren't quite finished. I'm not sure if she was quite finished. She was having a lot of health problems, but one of her biggest complaints was she just didn't have enough time to read all of those books that she had planned to read when they moved to the Amsterdam. She wanted to watch movies, visit with her grandchildren, be with my dad. But I guess we'll have to settle for 91, almost 92 years. And I want to just share one of my earliest memories was my mom sitting with me when I was going to sleep, and she was singing, "Hush-a-bye, don't you cry, go to sleepy little baby." So good night.